Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Conference, Day 5 of the EFMD Global Fair by Hired. My name is Amber Wigmore-Alvarez, Chief Talent Officer of Hired, and it's a great pleasure to be with you for this final digital conference session with Leonardo Lima today from the International Finance Corporation, IFC, part of the World Bank Group. A must-see for anyone interested in making a triple career jump, as Leonardo has done, into a different sector, function, or geography, and especially those interested in going into the development sector, the UN system, international organizations. So let me tell you a bit more about who Leonardo Lima is. He is the education specialist at the IFC Advisory Services for LAC in West Africa. He leads the Digital Transformation Accelerator Program for Tertiary Education, D4TEP, and in addition to VTI, which is a platform to improve employability services at higher education institutions. Before joining IFC, Leonardo developed his career in the infrastructure sector, serving at Andrade Gutierrez as the country manager in the Dominican Republic and the Caribbean region until 2015. In his pursuit to build career with purpose, he shifted to the education sector and worked as corporate relations director at IE Business School in Madrid, Spain, creating alliances with global public and private organizations to enable leadership development through corporate learning and applied research. He created a new service line for online corporate programs, which included co-designed solutions tailored for each client. He is passionate about diversity and inclusion, has been the corporate leader of the IE Diversity Center, and the leader of the resources group for women and LGBT employees at IE. He's the author of several articles on economic analysis for the Spanish newspaper Expansión, and he's also a civil engineer graduate from the Federal University of Pernambuco, MBA and MA in International Relations from IE, and a graduate from the United Nations Graduate Program in Geneva. It's a great pleasure to have with us Leonardo. Hello, how are you doing today, Leonardo?
Hi, Amber, and hi, everyone watching us today at the digital conference. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm talking today from Madrid in Spain, and I hope everyone had a great conference so far and enjoyed the opportunities at the Global Fair throughout this week. I'm excited for a chat today, Amber.
Thank you. Looking forward as well. Now let's get started. Let's just show a 3-minute video on IFC, and this one in particular will show the University of Strathmore in Kenya, which is actually one of our EFMD member schools. So let's take a look and we'll come back for the conversation, Leo.
We no longer live in a world of one job for life.
The type of people we are recruiting can cope in a dynamic world that's quickly changing.
And that's a bit of a challenge to universities. We're used to just teaching you for one profession.
Unfortunately, many of our universities have not changed their curriculum, so they're not giving them the 21st century skills that they need.
Universities are going to be a thing of the past if they don't pay attention to the current trends. I'm proud about the vision that the university has, which is to form future leaders for Africa who are responsible, who are all-around citizens, people of principle, and who are eager to serve society.
VITE is a program that helps universities create employable students.
The main expectation for many parents bringing their students here is that they will be employable when they come out. And VITE was just the right thing at the right time. So VITE is a research tool, and it uses several techniques. It uses surveys, it uses interviews of individuals, of focused groups, and then it puts all of that together in order to create a vision of how well an educational institution is doing in terms of preparing its students for employability.
This insight is coming from global experience. That was really, really insightful for us because we had the data, but there are some things we couldn't see. A key thing was, how do we relate with companies in a manner that we can start introducing students to some of the corporate practices?
So we're going to be revamping our activities in the Career Placement Office. We're going to look at our curriculum and especially the teaching methodologies that we're using in order to make them more suitable to develop skills. We're going to look at the kind of coaching and mentoring that we're giving to our students to make them more focused on skills.
We've noted that Strathmore University students tend to be very focused and goal-oriented. They tend to be very clear about their career paths.
What we do is we are like shepherds. We guide them to where their strengths can take them to. That way they have an ownership of their career, that way they have an ownership of their future and their development.
Excellent. Such important work you're doing. Now, Leo, tell us more about who you are and what do you do exactly at the IFC?
Okay. Well, the IFC is the International Finance Corporation. It's part of the World Bank Group, as you mentioned before, and that means that we share the same mission, right, of ending poverty and promoting shared prosperity in the work that we do. Difference is that IFC is focused on the development of the private sector in developing markets. So it does this through a strategy on creating markets through financial services and sector-specific advisory services. I particularly work with the advisory services team in the education sector. And as you have mentioned in the bio, I'm involved with two big projects. One that you've just seen the video now, it's called VTE. VTE is an employability tool developed by IFC to support higher education institutions in building or using the best practices for the processes that boost employability. And the second project that I'm involved at IFC is a project related to the digital transformation of higher education institutions. We have an accelerator program and have been working with a few clients in Latin America, specifically with this project, quite successfully over the last few months. A little bit about me when I joined IFC. I joined IFC just early this year, little less than a year ago. And it took me quite a lot of career planning, resilience, and of course, overcoming all the career barriers that we're going to talk about it today.
Sure. Now, just let me remind the audience, this is meant to be completely interactive. You have made a triple career jump in the world of careers for your career trajectory, and that I know so many of the talent in our audience are hoping to do the same. So I want to remind them that it's meant to be interactive. So any questions that you have for Leonardo, please share here in the chat, and I will be fielding those questions to him throughout the hour. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and especially those of you that might be facing similar challenges. And I'm just going to ask you, Leo, just like one of those questions that you would get in an interview. Why do you want to join IFC? Why is it that you joined the IFC?
Right. So joining the IFC had been a lot of reflection into the purpose that I had built for me and my values in portraying that in my career, right? I come from Recife, the northeast region of Brazil. The northeast region of Brazil is quite a poor region, or at least the poorest region in Brazil. We have a lot of heritage from our colonial times still present nowadays, both from tradition, but also from the consequences of slave trade and the climate conditions, right? So growing up, I was fortunate to live in a family that could provide for me, but I lived also in the ambivalence of the environment of dealing with inequality. I remember when I was very young, it's probably it was in the 90s, seeing the cover of a magazine in Brazil that portrayed a young boy in the countryside of my region, and in a clay house with a fire bone in front of him, cooking a lizard, and that was quite shocking to me. And from that moment, or at least that image that I have very live in my mind still nowadays, I knew that inequality or combating inequality was a driver for me and pursuing what I wanted to do for my career, right? Really developing this sense of justice and empathy for others was something that very strong in me.
And so what are the initial career aspirations that you had, or if you think early career? What is it that you set out to study and become? Because it seems when you make a triple jump, I imagine it's not where you are right now.
That's right, and we can think even of my first career change. Still, when I was a teenager, my first job when I was 16 years old was at a doctor's clinic, and at this point in life, I was sure that I wanted to become a doctor, and that would be my way of giving back to society. But long story short, after 6 months working at the clinic, I fainted during a patient's surgery and realized that that wasn't exactly where I was going to go and my way to help the world.
And so then, what did you end up studying?
Yeah, so then inspired by both my parents, my father and my sister, who are engineers, I decided to study civil engineering. I joined the Federal University of Pernambuco. I was fortunate back then to get scholarships and do study periods at the University of Texas at Austin and the Free University of Brussels, where I had the chance to start building this international path, learning languages, and preparing myself to the labor market.
Excellent. And so then, yeah, I was going to say, I think you started, was it in business development?
Yes. So actually, my when I came back from Belgium, I decided to stay in Brazil because the economy was just blossoming, and it made sense for me to pursue a career in the country. Right, we had huge infrastructure companies where I could build a beautiful career. So I started off at Andrade Gutierrez as an intern at the construction site, but very fast, after 6 months as an intern, I was hired in the company to the business development team, and I was sent off to Brasilia, the capital state or the capital city of Brazil. And in Brasilia, we shared offices with the government relations team. So after a year doing business development in the region, in the Brasilia region, I was offered a position in the government relations team to work with all of our international projects in Francophone countries in Africa. And that was one of the major periods of my life. I spent about a little more than 4 years in the team, and I found during this time really what were my true passion into public affairs and relationship building. Right, I represented the company before public authorities in trade missions across Africa and Latin America as well, and worked closely with business development leaders of the company in the project finance for these countries. So I was in the front of impactful projects such as water dam projects in Maputo in Mozambique that provided irrigation, energy, and supplied water to the population. Another project in Ghana, for example, there was a road corridor that allowed the movement of goods, and few other projects in many other countries that I had the opportunity to visit, like Republic of Guinea, Nigeria, Cameroon, Congo, Angola, and so on. And
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
No, yes, and after a few years working with Africa and project finance, that was when I finally was offered a promotion to become the country manager in the Dominican Republic for the company, overviewing all the Caribbean region operations and business development.
Now, you've already talked about several geographies here, and
Yes.
we have a question from the audience about working in multiple countries. Definitely the aspiration of so many out there in our network. We have 700 schools, as you know, in the EFMD network in 92 countries, and so many of them studying maybe in a third country and looking for international mobility. The question is, how difficult is it to move and get work opportunities abroad? I want to hear your perspective, and of course I can give a bit of perspective as well, and how to build a resume to get work opportunities abroad. So maybe talk about those geographical changes that you made and just how challenging it was.
Right. So while doing all this work internationally, I was still based in Brasilia. That meant that I lived in my house for maybe a week, a month. But I think the CV building for it comes very early, right? I had been preparing myself for an international career even before I started college. I did a exchange student period when I was 16 in the US. And throughout university, I was always looking for opportunities to engage with international environments, with diverse profiles of people from different programs. During university, I was also part of ISEC, which is a well-known global student organization with very international exercise. So I think this preparation came from early on, and at this point, I was just collecting the fruits of being able to circulate in this international environment, respecting everyone's culture, knowing the language, learning how to adapt and deal with differences. So yeah, I think it's in that way.
Yeah, and I would just to add to that, Tulsi, the whole work permit authorization can be challenging in certain markets for specific nationalities. So many of our students face that. There's things, of course, that you can do on your CV to aid in that by showing your international work experience, studies abroad, languages. If there has been any kind of silver lining to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an increase in micro virtual internships where you are able to intern, for example, on a remote basis. And it's a great way of getting wherever that company is headquartered, that international location on your CV without even necessarily relocating there. And of course, being able to show flexibility, resilience, strong language skills, communication skills, in a fresh perspective, perhaps, on the role that you're hoping to do from the market that you're coming from. So these are just some of the things, and actually, I'll encourage Tulsi to come to a future CV clinic. We've done 8 CV clinics this week throughout the fairs, and we touch so much on these elements for geographical change and even just the format of a CV by having your cities and countries on the right and the date so that a company can quickly scan and see how long you've been in each place. So there's lots of tips and tricks like that. So stay connected with us. And of course, we have the Hired LinkedIn Talent Community Group. We can share that link in the chat to the Talent Community Group. And this is a great way to share experiences with fellow talent from all over the globe, talent that may be working in the countries that you're aspiring to. And one of the best ways is the networking with your alumni from your fellow alma mater. And I've heard Leonardo already in the bio that I read about Leo. I know he's so active, especially with the IE alumni, and has remained connected to his alma mater. So fantastic.
Absolutely.
We've shared that now in the chat. So I encourage everyone on here to join that, and we can stay connected there. And that way you won't miss out on any future CV clinics coming up. Now, Leonardo, we often talk in the world of careers about triggers, something triggering a career change and your sense of purpose. What was that trigger for you that enabled or facilitated or provoked these career changes that you made?
Right. So it's interesting because moving to the Dominican Republic, like I said, represented to me one of the greatest career challenges and opportunities that I could wish for at that time. I was only 29 years old, and I was the youngest country director of the company. I mean, I had under my responsibility a pipeline of projects of over $500 million just between the Dominican Republic and Antigua and Barbuda. And to many people, that could be just the dream of the career, right? But living in Santo Domingo, which is such a big and beautiful city, there is a huge social gap between the poor and the rich. And as an expat, the social circles are small and very often work blends into your personal life. I would meet regularly public authorities, clients, and stakeholders of my workplace quite often in my free time, just because we frequented the same places. And to me, it's clear that the role of infrastructure and that the infrastructure projects may have a great impact on society, right? But still, I felt like my individual responsibility towards the inequality of the environment that surrounded me was disconnected from my objectives in the company. And that took me back to that moment living back home in the Northeast region in Brazil, right? On the company perspective, I mean, that's natural. It's a private company, it's a family business. Our results are measured financially and not on the impact that it has. So that was definitely a trigger to me. And in addition to that, second trigger was that for my own protection as an LGBT person, I built barriers in between my work life and my personal life. And at this point, I realized that I wasn't really living authentically. In many ways, I was jeopardizing my mental health for career ambitions that were not exactly in line with my purpose or me living in my true self. So at this point, that's when I started questioning where the path that I was going to, and started thinking that it was time for the career change, right? But that implies, of course, a lot of planning and thinking of really understanding yourself, first of all. So in understanding yourself is understanding what is really your ambition, both on career and in life with your purpose. How these things align, right? And within that process, once you understand yourself and where you want to go, that's when you started thinking about your strengths and weaknesses, right? So at this point, like I said, I knew I wanted to have a career that had more impact, that would align with my purpose, and that would let me live authentically. So given my previous experience with public affairs, I felt like it was a natural path to go to international organizations. And that's when I started my focus on looking into this kind of organizations, right? I started looking at the UN, at the World Bank, and just by reading a lot about the profile of professionals in these institutions, I started to understand what were my strengths and what were my weaknesses to join this career path. And part of the career planning, or planning the career change that we're talking about, comes into what are the actions that you're going to take to overcome your weaknesses, right? So for the kind of role that I wanted, I had a lot of experience in public affairs, but I didn't have any study in social science, for example. And so that's when I decided to keep on investing in my education and join a business school, and a business school that could also align with or fill the gap that I had in social science. Back then I had identified a couple of schools. I applied to them both, got into them both. It was LSE and IE. And in the end, I decided to go with IE just because it was a shorter program and it was full-time. But I knew exactly what I wanted from the school and what I expected from my studies.
So thank you, first of all, for sharing your own personal story and that trigger. We had a great comment here from Vutali that these disparities within our societies are so prevalent and hard to ignore. It's been a similar trigger for her. Excellent. And these career changes, like I said before, can be challenging, but not impossible. And it comes with the planning, like you were talking about now, the mapping, your planning, the understanding yourself and your strengths and weaknesses, and asking yourself the why and what is your ambition. So thank you for laying that out. And I just want everyone to realize and to emphasize that I think at times we make it sound so simple. Leo's triple jump to a career with purpose, but there's so much planning that has gone on, I understand, behind that. Now, we have a question, 2 parts. Let me just, what do you think if a person wants to continue within a field that is not relevant with his or her background, and he's done few steps in that, so maybe not so much experience in that, and the chances of being able to then have an international career going into the international market? So you have someone who's working in a field, wants to continue in that field, but it sounds like the background or the academic experience is not so aligned. Do you think it would be challenging to make a geographical career change?
Any change is I don't mean here to sugarcoat on any of that. It's hard, and it requires a lot of work for you to pursue in that sense. So the first one I'd say is for you to stay focused and be constant on your on what you're for. The second one I would say is your perseverance is that key factor that in the end will allow you to take a step back.
Leo, we seem to be having some technical difficulties in hearing you.
Is it my mic or is it the?
It could be the connection. It's the connection, it seems. Right now it's better, but you were cutting in and out, so we didn't fully get what you were saying there. Do you want to try again? I don't know if you want to switch to a different connection.
Yeah, sure. I hope that's working.
That's good. That's good.
Hope that's working better now.
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So so I was talking about what I consider to be key aspects when you're pursuing the career change and start your job hunt, right? The first one is for you to be focused and constant. The second one I was talking about is the perseverance, right? Perseverance is a key factor that will allow you to take a step back when it's needed to move forward. I mean, it's important to do career planning, but it's also important to understand that our career is not linear and that you may need to deal with adversity throughout the path without giving up, right? And when I look back at my trajectory, during my study period was also that time when I had to step back and start to get some more skills into social science. And actually business school gave me a lot more than that, so that I can also talk about. But just closing up this aspect, I talked about a constance, about perseverance, and I think the third key factor is really to be resilient. Know what you want, where you want to go, and no matter how many times you fall, make sure you're able to stand up.
I love that. It's okay to fall, but stand up, keep on going with a smile on your face.
Absolutely.
Now, you started to mention your educational experience and choosing a specific MBA program. I get a lot of questions from undergraduates in terms of next steps, if it should be to work or to study. Can you share a bit about your MBA experience and what path within the MBA or track that you took and what your focus was?
Of course. The MBA experience was life-changing. It was quite interesting because I came into the program knowing what I wanted, which surprisingly to me at the time is not the reality to a lot of my colleagues. But it was good to see that, because then when it happened to me to feel frustration in the job hunt process, it also helped me to pick up myself, and I will go into that in a little bit. But talking about the experience as a whole, as you mentioned, I took the track through the MBA of social impact. During the MBA, I had the chance to work in South Africa doing consultancy for an NGO, and that was actually my first touch base with the education sector. I worked with the organization Teach for All in South Africa, designing for them a framework that would help them report to their funding investors. And so I had a chance to visit secondary schools throughout the country and work with the local policy of Black economic empowerment. It was so interesting. It was quite passionate, the work that we were able to do in South Africa. And right after South Africa, I went to Ethiopia for a month as well, and worked in a small village south of Ethiopia, both teaching English to young girls and working with the local community on solutions for clean water supplies. So these two experiences were really what brought me into the world of education. And moving into my job hunt process, still during the MBA, my focus at that point was on a double jump, let's put it this way. I was thinking of still working in infrastructure, but or maybe in a business development position, but in the international organization set, and moving geography, of course. And just with this when I started job hunting, excuse me, I had a few experiences that were quite successful. First with the IDB, and then with the UN. With the IDB, I got to a final round of interviews, and in the end, I decided not to take an internship to pursue the social impact track of the MBA. And with the UN, that's when I got into the graduate program, which is a blend of immersion period in the UN in Geneva, with studies and also a little bit of work. And that built a lot of confidence in me on doing this double jump, right? But then it came really the hard time. I graduated from the MBA, and right after I went to Geneva for this period at the UN. And that's when my job hunting became quite frustrating. I spent several months applying for international organizations like the World Economic Forum, the UN itself, and the World Bank. And all these institutions, they have quite an interesting timing for their recruitment processes. It can be very fast, but it can be also very long. For the young professionals program of the UN, for example, I went through many examinations and to only a year and a half later to get the notice that I wasn't selected. Of course, I didn't wait for this 1 year and a half. And I think it's the part of the perseverance and the taking the step back that I mentioned about, that it's so important. After 6 months, I understood that it was time for me to change my strategy. Things weren't quite going the way I wanted. And that's when I decided to ask for help. And I went to see the president of IE University, Santiago Iniguez, with whom I had a very interesting chat that brought me back to what was my purpose, how I was trying to match this purpose with my career goals. And that's when he started introducing the seeds in me of why don't you think about education? And when I changed my strategy, I started looking at both private sector companies that had an impact purpose. And that's when things really changed. Within only 2 months, I went through many rounds of interviews and finally got two offers. One in a development consulting firm in Lisbon, and the position for corporate relations director at IE. And so that's really how I jumped heading in the education sector. It was really at IE. And we were talking just a while ago about what you can do to prepare yourself. Again, these opportunities that I had during the business school to tap into the education sector also prepared me to this next step in my career. And finally, the triple jump was actually consolidated in there, and like I said, in not a very linear way. I was quite happy at my period at IE. I had the pleasure to work with many companies in the private sector, partnershiping with them especially in the consulting, tech, and international organizations sectors. So even though I was not working in international organizations helm, I got to many times come to DC and visit the IDB, visit the World Bank, and build partnerships within the education sector. And
excellent. We do have a number of questions coming in for you, Leo.
Yes,
but
please,
I just wanted to touch on, you mentioned such an important point there with a mentor that you spoke with at IE, the president at the time. And it's so important to have mentors in our careers. And just, you might not even necessarily hear it in what you're saying, but just your approach of asking for advice. And I always say, you ask for advice, you get a job. You ask for a job, you get advice, right? And just how you've managed to create, you've had these opportunities, but they've very much been created by yourself through this planning and through the research that you did with the different organizations. So let me take a couple questions here from the audience. A question from Nicole. In order to make a career change, is it worth it to start from an internship or junior position, even though you have 10 years of experience in another sector and an MBA, or should you target higher positions?
I think the dream answer that every MBA student is wishing to hear is go higher. But what I have seen from, I mean, I didn't go to an internship position. I didn't really take that step back, but I have seen with many of my friends, and that paid off in the end. A lot of them got the internship position for several months, and within 6 months maybe they got their career change in the right position at the right level and the right the right level of seniority that they could add value to.
Excellent. Now, from Vutali, I love that you speak about preparation, because often the immediate desire is to just apply to global companies without the necessary planning. Would you say local impact companies would be a good start leading up to that? And what could those opportunities look like?
Yes, for sure. So one of the things in international organizations that most of the profiles can be quite specialized. So this field work that or experience that you build early on can definitely make a difference when you're trying to join these organizations.
Now, when you talk about, you say it can be quite specialized. Talk about being a generalist versus a specialist.
Right. So it's interesting because in spite of being an engineering, working in an infrastructure company in the past, my career path ended up becoming very more generalist. Right. I was always in the business end of the in my positions. Right. And when I was doing my job hunt into the international organizations, I understood that my profile, there were positions for my profile, but let's say they were not majority, right? So when we talk about the strategy as well, Amber, I think it's quite important, an exercise that I forgot to mention, but I went through listing and prioritizing the employers that top employers that I wish to work at. I went through understanding what were their mission, studying them, and really preparing ad hoc cover letters and CVs for each one of them. And in the process of identifying positions that you fit in, that's when I realized that I would have a better chance if I betted on my expertise. And in a generalist profile, it may be good for you to start tapping into expertise points, right? And my chances here were either in infrastructure or start in education that I had started tapping into.
Excellent. Now, another question from the audience from Victor. What would be your advice if my grades were not the best ones, but rather average? Let's say 7.5 or 8 on the scale from 5 to 10.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think grades or your academic performance on one hand is important, but it's not all. If your grades are not what are gonna really make you highlight, try all the other dimensions, especially building your experience. I think. And it's quite interesting working nowadays into the employability helm because a lot of the capabilities, skills, and capabilities that we see that are being demanded in the market nowadays, they're not only technical capabilities, they're mostly as well soft skills. So if you can, throughout your education, build the soft skills, your capacity to communicate, to work in teams, of leadership, these are quite important, and that's what all companies in all sectors are looking for.
Great. Now, from Jennifer, if you're trying to make a career change to a different field, would you recommend going for a lower position in the new sector or just apply for the same level you are in your current field?
If you are a right fit to that job description, I would target your level. But you need to understand also that if you're focusing or targeting the international organizations or the development sector, there is a lot of competitors, right? And the minimum details in that job description may make the difference. So that's also for you to consider when applying to jobs. And the strategy of tapping into more junior positions doesn't always work because sometimes the company will realize or the organization will realize that the position may be too small for you. So you need to be very careful with that, with tapping the different levels of positions.
Now, from Essie, how do you highlight generalist skills, especially where core tasks have been along specialist lines?
Right. So I think I mentioned a few just now of what could be considered some generalist skills, right? So interpersonal skills of communication, of building relationship, of leading teams, of collaborating. These are all very transversal skills to any kind of professional, from the ones who are leading the business to the ones who are developing the technical work or in the field. So yeah, so I would advise very much for everyone to build on these skills and make sure you can highlight and communicate it properly throughout your interviews and processes.
Excellent. Now, you've been very perseverant and resilient, as we've seen. You've worked in the education sector at IE, built expertise. You want to talk about that experience and how it led you to your new opportunity?
Sure, of course. So like I said, the experience I had at IE was quite interesting. I had the opportunity to really dive into the current needs in corporations on upskilling and reskilling the employee force. So I worked a lot with a learning and development strategy, and I had the chance to find out about a new passion in diversity and inclusion as well. And as you mentioned in my bio, I had worked both with projects in diversity and inclusion for corporate clients. For example, we did a program for women in strategy consulting that was very interesting. And within the employee resources groups that or initiatives that the school has on both women and LGBT. So I'm very thankful for being able to discover this passion in work in diversity and inclusion at IE.
Excellent. Now, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention a few other opportunities that working at the school really gave to me. With that focus on the work with women, I had the chance to bring to IE and interview a federal deputy, Brazilian federal deputy, Tabata Amaral, who I admire very much, and I recommend everyone to take a look at her career path as well. It's a young politician who is also an advocate for education and for women's rights in Brazil.
And it's often those opportunities, and I always say never reject an opportunity to speak in public, to moderate a panel, to do a fireside chat, to interview someone. It's by raising your hand and volunteering for these opportunities, and then of course promoting it online, that can very much lead you to your next step. It's what I've always seen, these insignificant decisions. What might seem insignificant at the moment, it really is the sum of all that often leads to our career trajectory. So then you had talked about the work that you put into researching the international organizations, what was their mission, identifying if there's a fit. Talk about the IFC opportunity and how you went through that process then on your own for your current process and to actually getting started.
Of course. So I was very happy at IE Business School. However, I never lost that constance and perseverance and resilience that I mentioned before. And I kept looking into the international organizations. And it was my experience joining IFC was quite interesting because it was more unusual than I had prepared to. My position was announced on LinkedIn, and I applied through LinkedIn. And the process was also quite fast. Within only 2 months, I had interviews with the entire team, with the management, and got my offer. So it was quite opposite from the experiences I had just after my MBA. So these things can vary a lot, but it was quite fast. And I also joined IFC during COVID times, as we all know. I joined early this year in and all my process, I was taken virtual, right? My position would be originally based in DC, Washington, DC. But one of the things of the pandemics, the bank policy is still to remote work. The office occupancy is limited to 25% right now. And that ended up fitting into a wish that came later, which was a wish to stay in Spain. So I've been working virtually since I joined the organization, and it's been a wonderful experience so far.
Amazing. And so you mentioned LinkedIn, and we often say if you're not on LinkedIn, you don't exist. I'm always respectful because it's not legal in all markets, but where it is, just the fact that 70% of recruiters are sourcing talent via LinkedIn, 80% will look at your LinkedIn profile before even calling you in for an interview, and the importance of understanding how to optimize your LinkedIn profile and gain that visibility. So pay attention to that because you heard it here from Leo. Now, I wanted to ask you, as you've very much had this successful career trajectory with multiple changes, which you have managed to navigate so well, and how fascinating the selection processes that we've been seeing that are entirely online, virtual, not a single face-to-face interview, and even your onboarding. So your onboarding, would you classify that as having been successful despite not having had yet physical contact with colleagues during that onboarding period?
Yes, of course, the human side and chit chat in the office, one miss, but everything had run very smoothly. I was very welcome to the team. Some of my team members spoke to me on private, asking to do just a quick call so that we could talk about our lives and introduce each other. And also the bank has a very well-prepared set of programs and courses that will help you into this onboarding, right? So both general on the bank about the ethics, about compliance, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of preparation coming into that that the organization is prepared to.
Excellent. And you mentioned before the ad hoc cover letters that you've done. And I know CV writing and cover letter writing is a huge frustration amongst talent. And they often, and I say this from a career professional perspective, they're often quite lazy about it. And even when a recruiter is asking for a CV and cover letter, there so many occasions I've seen where they just send the CV. And so the importance of taking the time, do you want to say a few words to the customization of the CVs, the customizations of the cover letters, and aligning that to the mission of the organization, and how you would go about tailoring yours? Because I know, I believe you had 2 job offers in 2 months from your efforts through that. Talk a bit about that and the importance of really customizing and personalizing it to the organization they're applying to.
Absolutely. So actually, there are 2 aspects I would highlight here, Amber. One is really the ad hoc cover letter, but also it's very important for you to network, and don't be shy to do that. So on the cover letter aspect, we all have different styles of writing, right? But there are key factors in your cover letter that you need to make sure you send out the message. Is 1, you understand the organization, you're aligned with it. 2, you understand the position. And 3, that you are capacitated or you have the skills to perform this position. So people may take on creativity and do a cover letter that is going to be a little bit storytelling, and that's fine, that works. For some other people like myself, I tend to be more into structure and use bullet points, but it always helped me to keep on mentioning and not forgetting these key aspects that will link and get the attention of the recruiter at a first glance. And the second part that I was talking about, networking, and don't be shy to do so. The other offer that I had in the consulting firm, I literally reached out to a person in the company saying that I was in Lisbon and I loved what they were doing if they had 5 minutes to see me. I didn't even have my ticket to Lisbon. To my surprise, they answered positively. So I took a flight to Lisbon. I went to see them. I pitched them my experience and how I liked what they were doing, and put myself available if they had any opportunities. And within a week later, they came into me and they said, listen, we had a plan to expand our business development activity. That was going to happen in 6 months, but we feel like you're just the right profile. So we want to make you an offer. So this step it seems simple, but it takes so much internal effort to reach out to people, to admit that you may need help from others, but don't be afraid to do so, and get support in your network, either from your school or elsewhere. But I absolutely recommend you to do that.
Excellent advice, so concrete, and really good to show the efforts that you made there. And I love that you highlighted, yes, the talent that we have in our network come from top schools with career services departments, so don't hesitate to go back there. And here at Hired, we're constantly looking to and striving to help accelerate the matching between the opportunities in our network, which was the entire point of this week's fairs, and your skills and your credentials and accelerating that match. We have had more questions about those interested in working for the IFC and World Bank Group. I want to emphasize that you should go to the careers webpage that we'll share here again. Questions about if there are graduate opportunities in business consulting or business analytics, also from one who's in the first year of a master's with 2 years of relevant experience and multiple internships. Do I meet the minimum qualifications for the global internship program? So I would definitely encourage you all to visit the career site and take this fantastic advice we've heard from Leo and apply it to achieve your own triple career jumps into a career with purpose. One final question for you, Leo. Mm-hmm. I want to know, what do you wish someone had told you at the start of your career? You have many people in the audience that are either setting out on their career now or those that are looking to make a career change. Mm-hmm. What is that one piece of advice you wish someone had told you back then at the start?
Definitely trust yourself, and remember that why you are doing things. Very often when you've faced the barriers and you are in a mood that is not the best to keep going, thinking why you are doing things and believing in yourself will help you move forward. So I'd say that.
Excellent, Leo. This has been so insightful. I thank you for your time and your valuable contributions to our network. It's been a great discussion, and for sure, it's been an inspiration to so many in the audience today. So we appreciate your time, Leo. Leonardo Lima from International Finance Corporation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you, Camila, and the Higher Ed group.
Thank you. Take good care. And now, stick around, everyone. We will watch a brief video from our sponsor, AB InBev, and then we will follow with the closing ceremony. So stay tuned for all the exciting details.
Sharing a beer has brought people together for centuries. This simple act is as meaningful today as it was over 600 years ago when we first started brewing. From the very beginning, our company was built on making connections, bringing people together to make a difference. For us, that starts with brewing great beer. True masters of the craft, our brewers work closely with farmers to combine top-quality barley, the choicest hops, and our taste signature yeasts to delight beer drinkers. Every bottle is one we are proud to serve. With more than 400 brands made in over 50 countries, we brew many of the world's most loved beers, and have a beer to suit every occasion. We continue to lead the way, pushing the boundaries with new tastes and experiences to provide more people with more choices in more places. But our commitment doesn't end there. We are using our resources and energy to make a positive impact on the world. We support the livelihoods of thousands of farmers and retailers. We set the bar in water efficiency and are helping improve access to clean water and reduce our impact on the environment in our communities and beyond. And we are working hard to ensure every experience with our beer is a positive one, bringing people together through our brands, our people, and our communities, today and for generations to come. We are AB InBev.
Welcome back for the closing ceremony, day 5 of the EFMD Global Fairs by Hired. My name is Amber Wigmore-Alvarez, Chief Talent Officer, and it's been a great pleasure to moderate the sessions, the digital conferences throughout the week. I want to thank the hundreds of recruiters from more than 80 companies and organizations that have been with us all week for the fairs, and remind you that you can continue meeting with the companies until 6 p.m. CEST today. And also, their job opportunities will remain posted on our global job board at your school's gethired.global platform in the job section. So we hope that the insights learned throughout the digital conferences with keynote speakers from Coursera, Mondelez International, L'Oreal, AB InBev, and International Finance Corporation, IFC, from the World Bank Group have been helpful for you in your career journeys. It's been my pleasure to co-host 8 CV clinics throughout the week with careers professionals from Alba Graduate Business School in Greece, Cranfield University in the UK, Audencia Business School in France, American University of Beirut in Lebanon, Koç University in Turkey, and KU Leuven in Belgium. And now, speaking of Belgium, we're going to head over to the EFMD Brussels headquarters to our colleague, Jean-Alexis Spitz, also known as Jazz, for a few words from the EFMD. And a very special thank you to Jazz because he has been doing excellent work live tweeting the digital conferences throughout the week. Jazz.
Thank you, Amber. What a week it has been. What a week. So many participants from around the world. So many events. I mentioned the great conference that I had indeed the pleasure to live tweet, and where I have to say that I was really impressed by the openness, the availability, and the agility of the speaker you gathered with the steering committee, and who really exchanged with you, with the audience, and gave some really valuable insights and advices for all the candidates. You mentioned the CV clinics that are always so successful, and I have to say that I almost missed co-hosting them with you, and that's why you've seen me every so often. So many events, webinars, info session also organized by the company. Wow, what a week it has been. And aside the one-to-one interaction between candidates and recruiters that are, of course, at the core of this event, I think these virtual fairs have really become, in less than 2 years of existence, the meeting point of the EFMD talent community. And that is exactly the spirit that we had in mind when we started, together with Hired, at the very beginning of the pandemic last year, to work on this project. That was to become a project for the EFMD school community, with the EFMD school community, and by the EFMD school community. And we at EFMD, we are really grateful that more than 160 of our members embarked on this journey, invited their talent, invited their corporate partners to join in such an event. Technically, we have to say that it was really flawless. The homepage of the fair looked like a beehive, always buzzing with new notifications, new events, new chats. And for that, we can really commend the Hired tech team, and actually the whole Hired team, for all the development and all the support they provided to make such an event such a success. And since we won't forget that we are doing this event for you, Don't forget to give us your feedback and reply to the surveys that we'll be sending to you so that the next edition in 2022 can be even better than this one. Back to you, Oslo. I'm looking forward to being able to join you all in person.
Thank you so much, Jazz. And you mentioned the whole team. So here we are. It's been a great pleasure. Now, I want to talk about that fantastic engagement from the more than 160 schools. And I want to hear it for our top 10 schools that have had the most engagement. So listen up, see if your school is one of them. We had, in the first place, we had Cranfield University, Imperial College London, Imperial College Business School, ESCP Business School, Audencia Business School, KU Leuven, the Faculty of Economics and Business, EDEC Business School, Kedge Business School, Trinity College Dublin Business School, Nottingham Trent University, Nottingham Business School, Nottingham Trent University, and Leonardo da Vinci Group. So a huge congratulations to the career services and the talent, especially from those schools, for your fantastic engagement throughout the week with the recruiters and the digital conferences. Now, these 10 schools will be awarded with complimentary Coursera licenses for a selection of their learners. And I want to show you now the exciting news. We kicked it off on Monday with our new partnership with Coursera. And we heard from Dr. Samar Farah in the opening ceremony, the digital skills transformation consultant at Coursera. I want to show you on your school's gethired.global platform how you can now access the phenomenal Coursera offering. You have it all here. You can check in with your career services. You'll be able to acquire licenses on your own. Stay tuned to our giveaways that will be happening throughout our social media. The Get Hired challenge, the Instagram challenge that we have, will be extended until next week. So if you're not yet following us on Instagram, follow us at Get Hired. And here you have it. So it's now available to you, and it's been a great pleasure to see how so many of you have been listing the Coursera certifications on your CVs now and on your LinkedIn profiles. We know that the employers are greatly valuing these certifications. So no limit to the number of certificates you can acquire through the Hired Coursera partnership. In terms of the Get Hired platform, I also mentioned to you that you'll be able to continue seeing the job opportunities there following the fair. So all those fantastic companies and organizations you've been meeting with throughout the week, you have their opportunities as long as they remain active. The selection process, you will be able to find the companies and their opportunities there on the site. Also, for anyone who may have missed any of the digital conferences, by next week, you will find all of those in the masterclasses section of the web. And we look forward to hearing from you in terms of what do you want to see next. Give us this insight. My particular role, Chief Talent Officer, it's to hear from you, to take your pulse, to understand what you most value, and will help you to secure those opportunities. So that's an overview. We want to stay connected with you. Let's say hello to our student ambassadors. We have more than 50 student ambassadors around the globe that have just joined our Hired Student Ambassador program in September and will be with us until May. They've been very active, and hopefully there are some student ambassadors at your school helping to spread the word, and you will have seen them active in social media. So we do hope that you continue engaging at your school and spreading the word about all the great opportunities. So here you have our student ambassadors saying hello to everyone. And now a very special thank you to our company sponsors who have made this fantastic event possible. I want to thank AB InBev, BBVA, and GEP worldwide. And now, on behalf of the entire team, I thank you for your engagement throughout the week. I thank our recruiters, our career services professionals, and of course, you, the talent, the students and graduates from our schools all over the globe, and of course, our partner, EFMD, back in the headquarters. Thank you all.